win, go win, go win, go win, go win, man, go win.
Let's go out to New York. Let's talk about the New York Giants, as the New York Giants are benching Russell Wilson, and they are going to insert rookie quarterback Jaxson Dart, and he will get his first start this Sunday against the L.A Chargers. Brian Daboll announced, and Brian Daboll made it clear that this was his decision to bench Russell Wilson for Jaxson Dart. So, when I look at the New York Giants situation right now at quarterback, and when you ask the question, is this the right decision by the Giants? I believe that the New York Giants were going to start Jaxson Dart at some point this season. So I agree with Brian Daboll's decision to insert Jaxson Dart as their starting quarterback. But I disagree with the timing of Brian Daboll's decision. And the reason why I disagree with the timing of the decision is because this week, the Giants, they have the Chargers. And the Chargers, defensively, they have been one of the best defenses in the NFL. I believe entering week 3, the Chargers and the Packers were the only two teams in the NFL to not have given up a first half touchdown. Only the Chargers and the Packers entering week 3. And so the Chargers have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and we know that the Chargers are led by head coach Jim Harbaugh. And Jim Harbaugh is a defensive mind. He's a great defensive coach, and that Chargers defense is elite. They got Tyler Tart, they got Deshaun Hand as their pass rushers. At linebacker, you got Bud Dupree, Dante Jackson in the secondary, Derwin James Jr. on that back end at safety. So they have an elite defense. And to me, you're putting Jaxson Dart in a tough spot, inserting him into the starting lineup in a game against an elite Chargers defense. And that game against the Chargers this week would have been tough for Russell Wilson. But you're going to insert the rookie? And I disagree with that, with the timing. The timing to me doesn't make any sense. I agree that you have to see how good Jaxson Dart is going to be, but I just disagree with Brian Daboll's timing of this decision, because when you look at the Giants' schedule, after week 4 against the Chargers, week 5, they are in New Orleans against the Saints. So to me, that would have been a better spot to insert Jaxson Dart in as your starting quarterback, because the Saints are the worst team in the league. They're the worst team in the league, and Jaxson Dart won't have the pressure of performing at a high level in front of Giants fans at MetLife Stadium against a team that's a superior team. The Chargers are better than the Giants. So it's understandable for Jaxson Dart to have some struggles in that game. I would have waited one more week, and I would have put Jaxson Dart into the starting lineup as my starting quarterback against the worst team in the NFL, and that game is also on the road. So if you're going to start a rookie quarterback, it's always better to me to start these rookie quarterbacks on the road, because there won't be as much pressure. Now, also, because they're in New York, that's also why I believe it's better to start Jaxson Dart on the road compared to being at home. Other teams, you would rather your rookie quarterback to get their first start at home. But considering the Giants are in New York, it's a big, huge market, I feel like it's going to be a ton of pressure on Jaxson Dart in this week 4 matchup against a superior team in the L.A. Chargers. And I think that overall, when you look at the Giants, I do understand why Brian Daboll made this decision, because I'm looking at Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson for the season, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 778 passing yards. He's completed 59% of his passes. And I watched that game Sunday night against the Chiefs. Russell Wilson was awful. He was awful, and I believe Russell Wilson playing days are over. And obviously his best days are behind him. I'm going to talk about whether or not I believe he's a Hall of Famer here in a minute. But he struggled against the Chiefs, and he could not score a single touchdown. And there was one possession, the Giants were in the red zone, and Russell Wilson was throwing the ball into the back of the end zone. And you can see Malik Neighbors. And I believe Malik Neighbors is one of the best young receivers we have in the NFL. You can see Malik Neighbors' frustration throughout these first 3 games. Now, Russell Wilson did ball out in week 2 against the Cowboys. Against the Cowboys in week 2, Russell Wilson, 450 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He completed 73% of his passes. His passer rating was 123. But the Cowboys are one of the worst defensive teams in the NFL. I can go out there and throw for at least 150 yards on the Cowboys defense. So he played great against the Cowboys in week 2, but in week 3 against the Chiefs, 160 passing yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, completed 56% of his passes. Passer rating was 43.8. So he was bad against the Chiefs. He did not play well whatsoever. And I'm looking at Brian Daboll, the head coach for the New York Giants. Brian Daboll, he's been the Giants head coach for 3 years. This is his 4th year. In his first year, he went 9-7-1. They overachieved that season, and they made it to the second round of the NFL playoffs. They lost in the divisional round, and he made Daniel Jones look better than he actually is. And so he did a tremendous job that season managing Daniel Jones and that Giants offense, and they got to the postseason, and they won a playoff game. They beat the Vikings on Wild Card Weekend. And then 2023, they went 6-11. They missed the playoffs. Last year, they went 3-14. They missed the playoffs. And they start this season out 0-3. And so I think this was a move by Brian Daboll because, A, he wants to save his job, but B, in this week 4 matchup against the Chargers, Brian Daboll doesn't want to get booed the entire game. That's why I feel like he inserted Jaxson Dart as his starting quarterback and benched Russell Wilson. He doesn't want to get booed throughout this entire game against the Chargers, because one of the worst things watching football is when you are watching a team and everyone knows and everyone who are fans of that team wants to see the rookie quarterback. And that was the exact situation that the Giants were in. All Giant fans, they wanted some type of hope. They wanted some type of optimism. They want to be optimistic about something. And so I think inserting Jaxson Dart gives Giants fans hope. It gives them reason to be optimistic. And so I think that Brian Daboll, he knows if he started Russell Wilson again and Wilson goes out there and struggles again, not only is Russell Wilson going to get booed, Brian Daboll also will get booed as well, because all the Giants fans want is some sense of them being able to be optimistic about this football team moving forward and having hope to where they can see flashes of some decent quarterback play. And I'm looking at Jaxson Dart. This was Jaxson Dart in the preseason. He went 32 of 47. He had 372 passing yards. He averaged 7.9 passing yards per attempt. And he had 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. So he showed a lot of promise, and I like his upside at the quarterback position for the New York Giants. And I think Giant fans, they saw that in the preseason, and that's why Giant fans, they had such a short leash when it comes to Russell Wilson because they want to see the rookie. They want to see if Jaxson Dart is their franchise quarterback moving forward. And I think it's going to be interesting to see this situation throughout the course of the regular season because Daboll said he's rolling with Dart for the rest of the season. But I think it's going to be a tough spot for Dart this week against the Chargers. Chargers have a really, really good defense, and I think Dart will struggle in this game. Now, let's talk about Russell Wilson and whether or not I believe Russell Wilson deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. When I look at Russell Wilson, obviously Russell Wilson has not been the same player since he departed from Seattle. You look at Russell Wilson's numbers. With the Seahawks, he won 66% of his games. With the other teams, he's only won 39% of his games. With the Seahawks, he completed 65% of his passes. With other teams, he's completed 63% of his passes. With the Seahawks, he has a 3.4 touchdown to interception ratio. With other teams, it's 2.3. With the Seahawks, his total QBR was 66. With other teams, it's 45. And when I think about Russell Wilson, obviously, he won a Super Bowl as the Seahawks quarterback. He's a 10-time Pro Bowl quarterback. That's tied for the 5th most by a quarterback. He has the most wins by any quarterback in their first 9 seasons all time with 98. And he's one of 3 quarterbacks with a winning record in each of their last 9 seasons as a starter all time. And let's not forget that Russell Wilson is one terrible play call away from being a 2-time Super Bowl champion. If it were not for Pete Carroll and Darrell Bevell making the worst play call in Super Bowl history, Russell Wilson would be a 2-time Super Bowl champion as a quarterback. I still don't understand for the life of me how the hell the Seahawks, how the hell they decided to give the ball to Russell Wilson and not hand the ball off to beast mode makes absolutely no sense to me. But I think in totality, I believe that there are going to be some quarterbacks who get into the Hall of Fame that do not deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And one of those quarterbacks is Eli Manning. And earlier I was thinking and comparing Eli to Russell Wilson. To me, Russell Wilson was a better quarterback than Eli Manning. Eli Manning is going to make the Hall of Fame because of his last name and the weight that the Manning last name carries. But Eli Manning, in a regular season, his record was 500. And there were seasons when Eli Manning led the NFL in interceptions. And when Eli Manning played, there were other quarterbacks who were significantly better than Eli Manning. And so if Eli Manning is going to make the Hall of Fame, I don't believe he deserves to get in. But if he's going to make the Hall of Fame, Russell Wilson damn well better make the Hall of Fame. He better, because Russell Wilson is a Super Bowl champion, and Russell Wilson was a better quarterback than Eli Manning ever was. And Eli Manning was able to win a Super Bowl because of 2 playoff runs where he had elite defenses. Now, Russell also had Legion of Boom, and that first Super Bowl when they beat Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos, Legion of Boom was the best secondary in pro football. But as the years went along in Seattle, that became Russell's football team. Initially, it was all about Legion of Boom and beast mode. But as the years went along in Seattle, guys started to get older. That became Russell Wilson's football team. And because Russell Wilson was a model citizen and they were winning games while Russell was the quarterback, I believe that warrants Russell Wilson to get into the Hall of Fame. But it's an interesting conversation, interesting debate. But I do believe Russell Wilson's career is officially over. And I do expect Jaxson Dart to struggle in his first NFL start against the L.A Chargers. But like I said earlier, I believe that this was a move because Brian Daboll doesn't want to get booed the entire game against the Chargers. But those are my thoughts on Jaxson Dart, Brian Daboll, and Russell Wilson and the New York Giants right now as we speak.
Go in, go in, go in.